The other day when I did my video on shadow work, I said I would do another video talking about the ego. So this is it. I do get annoyed sometimes by the way we talk about ego. And it's because we talk about it like it's a bad thing. To be honest, your ego showing up is not a crime. Ego is literally who you are. If we say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, your human experience is filtered through your ego. We don't want to banish our ego. It is not a demon. It is not a bad thing. The bad part comes when you've got issues with your ego or you're unaware of your ego and you refuse to acknowledge those issues, because on the reverse side of that, there are strengths that come with your ego as well. Ego forms your identity. Your ego forms your boundaries. Your ego is you. Without your ego, you would not be alive. Now, when we say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that should be maybe a clue to be the observer of the ego. You know that voice in your head that you hear sometimes? Sorry, some people don't, I know. But when you hear that higher voice in your head, that is you being observant of your ego in most cases. When you are not observant of your ego, then your mind is like, I'm right, you're wrong, this is what I believe, everything else is wrong. The real problem is not the presence of the ego, it is denying it. And some people are not aware of their ego. They are not aware of their higher self or their spiritual self and their earthly self. And that's a lot of times where we say, oh, he's got a lot of ego or she's got a lot of ego showing. When somebody won't admit that they are driven by their ego or they're acting by their ego, then they are defensive and they believe that they are acting from a place of righteousness. So the real way to overcome the ego isn't to try and rise above it or pretend it's not there. The trick, and this goes along with shadow work, is to know when your ego is controlling you. Denying your ego or vilifying your ego is almost like being mad that your car has a fuel tank. It's an integral part of the system, and that fuel tank can either drive you forward or it can explode right underneath you. But either way, pretending it's not there doesn't make you a better driver, does it? Now, one of the things I focused on heavily last year was trying to understand when I was acting from ego or when I was acting from my higher self or my intuition. And the ego is typically defensive. If I get any type of intuitive thought and it's got a whole story behind it, like if you leave the house, you're gonna get in a car crash and this is gonna happen, that's usually my ego. That's a fear from my ego. Whereas if it's my higher self, it would just be like, don't go. Don't do it. Usually any chaotic emotion, anger, fear, shame, self-hatred, all those things are they're from ego. Those are not from your higher self or your spirit. Your higher self usually comes in very authentically and organically, whereas your ego tends to come in with claws. And if it's in your mind and it's tapping at you that way, just being aware of it is defeating it. Being aware of it and naming it is how you defeat it. And that goes again with what I was saying about the shadow integration. That is understanding the shadow. That is your higher self being aware of the shadow. Nobody is perfect at mastering this. I am not perfect at mastering this, I promise you, but you can get better at recognizing it. One thing I learned about myself in this, observation of the ego was that a lot of times when I would come against somebody I dislike, I was usually, and I know they say that when you don't like somebody, it's because they represent yourself or they remind you of yourself. That's very true with me. There's been people even on this app that I have previously blocked before or I've just felt an aversion to in some way. And what I started doing is I started paying attention to that. And then I would sit with it for a little bit. And then I realized it's because that person is reflecting a hidden part of myself. And a few of those people I am actually very good friends with now. Not any of you. No, none of you. My biggest adversaries have become my greatest teachers. So usually when I have some kind of conflict or friction with somebody, I usually stop and say, like, what am I supposed to learn here from this person? Again, the ego keeps you alive. It is there for defensiveness. It is there to protect you. It is not your enemy. It helps you find clarity. It's where you get your desire for justice. It is where your conflict comes from. It is where your pride comes from. It is where your envy comes from. Your higher self or your spiritual self shows up when you are in the reflection, when you are aware of the ego. It is simple, it is intuitive, it is straight to the point, no bells and whistles with the higher self. Sometimes it's just a knowing. Sometimes it is just an awareness. And I promise you, you will never, ever, ever, ever be a perfect person. You will never overcome your ego completely. You will always have flaws, and be okay with that. Because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Allow yourself to have it. Also, don't judge other people by their ego. Some people are just at different places. A high school student doesn't look at a kindergartner and go, ugh, kindergarten. Just know that they're further along in the path. It's like, well, they'll get here eventually. Judging someone based on the size of their ego is, it's assuming that we all come into this life in the same place. And if you are in a spiritual practice where you believe in reincarnation and the development of the soul, we have to understand that other people come in at different places. It really makes it a lot easier to understand people and who they are and how they are and how they operate when you, first of all, listen to yourself and understand your own ego, but realize that everyone else is also struggling with theirs. If you have awareness of your ego, be grateful, because you probably had to go through a lot to get there. People who aren't there yet will get there eventually. Maybe not in this life, maybe in the next, but that's not my business.